The last time I talked of Hindu king Prithviraj Chauhan, who was defeated by Muhammad Ghori, was defeated by the Muslim Turkish king. And he was defeated not because he lacked valor, because he did not want to indulge in killings. He was too cultured. You see, in history, civilized nations have been overrun by barbaric people, always. You know of the Roman Empire, it was a great empire, but it was overrun by Huns. You know it? By goats. They were barbaric people. And even today the terrorists are around here. They are the barbaric people. They don't do research, they don't develop weapons. They somehow steal the technology and try to overwhelm and destroy. So this, you know why the Great China Wall was built? Anybody tell me why the Great China was built by the Chinese? The mainland China was being attacked by tribes that were on the northern border of the China, in Mongolia, in Kyrgyzstan, in the steppes. Those tribes were all the time invading China, so they built a Chinese wall. So there is always a danger for civilized people to be overrun by barbaric people, less civilized persons. Yes?
You may have gone over this last class, but when you're saying that people are accepting that the Aryans basically had taken over violently the Indus Valley civilizations. But
no, Indians had not even taken.
Excuse me?
There was no Aryan invasion.
There was no, but you're saying that there was no Aryan invasion, but the books say that there were Aryan invasions.
Were you not there in the last lecture?
Well, actually, I think I missed that one point. Yeah, and I guess you did go over that, so I didn't hear it. Yeah. But no, I do understand what you're saying.
No, this is what I told. I started with this, that I was going through the book of Dhruv, which says that Aryans had invaded India and settled down and destroyed the Harappan civilization. Mm-hmm. This is what even it is being written. But now it is settled that there was no Aryan invasion.
But the Aryans still came.
They never came from anywhere. The original indigenous people were known as Aryans. Aryan people did not constitute a race. The indigenous people, white and black mixed, they called themselves Aryan because the meaning of the Aryan is Arya, or term Aryan of the meaning is civilized people. They call themselves civilized. So there was no invasion. This is what this penguin history. There is one historian, Romila Thapar, in India. She was a great proponent of Aryan invasion theory. Even she has given in. There is the Penguin History of Early India, just published in 2002. In this book, she has considered Penguin History of Early India. At page 105, she concedes Aryan invasion has no more credence.
Because there were no Aryans.
People who were civilized, this is called themselves Aryans.
But they didn't come from a distant land they didn't come from a far off land and invade.
There's no basis of. No, I discussed in great detail last time. Do you remember?
Sorry.
You remember, and probably I've given a paper also, The Myth of Aryan Invasion. Did you get it?
Sorry, guys. Yeah, I have it right here.
You have a paper? The Myth of Aryan Invasion? Demise of the Aryan Invasion theory. Mm-hmm. I've given a long, so study it, then discuss with me. All right, so
Good.
go ahead. So Prithviraj Chauhan was basically defeated because he was not prepared for the war. He did not want to kill the invaders. I told you, he wrote a letter to the Muhammad Ghori that I have already defeated you once. You have again come, I'll again defeat you. And I'll kill your soldiers. You may not care for the lives of your soldiers, but I care for their lives. So I suggest you go back. And the Muhammad Ghori replied that, sir, we have received your letter. I'm the representative of my king. I'm his general. I'll go back, but I'm sending you a letter to the king. I'll await his reply. Depending on his reply, I'll inform you. Till such time I get the reply from my king, I want peace. I want ceasefire. The Hindu king agreed for the ceasefire. And the Muslim historian writes that they passed that night in riot and revelry. They must have enjoyed the war is over. And after they slept, early morning, the Muslims invaded and defeated them. They were unprepared. Probably they must have taken a lot of liquor and they couldn't get it. So this is how the Hindus were defeated. You see, whenever a foreign country invades and occupies, it has adverse effect on that country. The Muslims were in occupation of India for almost 1,000 years. And that completely destroyed the Indian civilization and culture. They destroyed temples. I told you how the Buddhism disappeared from India. You remember? Because Buddhists were easily identifiable. They were shaven-headed, they wore ochre-colored robes. They lived together in monasteries. Thousands of Buddhists lived in monasteries, so they were easy targets. Whereas Hindus could survive. Why did Hindus could survive? I told you last time.
Flexibility.
Flexibility, yes. Hinduism was not dependent on the temples, was not dependent on the priestly class. The temples were destroyed. For a Hindu, it is not necessary that you should worship an idol. You know, you may not worship it. You may be an atheist, not believe in God, yet you may be a Hindu. All right, this sounds surprising, because here on the coin it's written, in God we believe. So most of Hindus, 99% believe in God. Hindus believe in God, but there are certain percentage of people who don't believe in God. And the scriptures permit that. There is a Sankhya school of Indian philosophy which does not believe in God. So since they did not believe in God, they did not believe everyone did not believe in idol worship. So when the idols were broken, and those idol worshippers were there, would bring a stone pebble, put in the house, create an altar like this, put a stone pebble, and say this is representative of God. Because all along, when Hindus worship an idol, they are all along aware that this idol is not worship, is not God. It is only a symbol of God. So if one symbol is destroyed, you can always put another symbol. All right? So that is the reason. And you know, in ancient Hinduism, there was no idol worship. In Vedas, there was no idol worship. Idol worship came into Hinduism because of the influence of the Buddhism. And that too, in Buddhism also, it came largely because of the influence of Greek influence.
Can you say that again? Can you say that one more time?
Beg your pardon?
The idol worship came into Hinduism because of Buddhism.
It came under the Buddhist influence.
Buddhist influence.
And
then
in the
that
Buddhists also, it came under the Greek influence.
Can you explain that a little bit further?
Elucidate. I'll explain to you. Because there are two schools in Buddhism. One is Heenyan. I'm probably going to details, but please note down. There are two schools in Buddhism. One is Heenyan, and the other is Mahayana. Would you somebody write here? Heenyan. H-I or H-E-E-N. All right. H-E-E-N Y-A-A-N. But that's A, you may write. And Mahaya, M-A-H-A-A, H-A-A. H-A-A, H-A-A, Y-A-A-N. Heenyan and Mahayana.
Guys, read my writing.
Yeah, that's great.
Two schools are there. Heenyan and Mahayana. The Heenyans don't believe in idol worship. And the school of Heenyan worship is in Ceylon. They don't believe in idol worship. What they do, instead of Gautam Buddha, they will worship a tree, just like this. They will make trees, isn't it? Some leaves here. Or they will have a stoop, or they will have a chakra. These are the three symbols they would worship. They will worship a tree symbol because it is believed that Buddha got enlightenment under a tree, Bodhi tree, tree of enlightenment. So they will put the symbol of tree and worship it. They will not put the idol or image or icon of Buddha, Heenyan people. Or they will make this disc, they call it chakra, because he said that he had moved the wheel of dharma. This is the wheel of dharma, chakra. And third is the stupa mound, small mound, because when Buddha was cremated, his ashes were buried and an earthen mound was created over it. So the mound is the symbol of Buddha. These are Heenyan people. But then in the early centuries of Christianity, in 100 years before Christianity and 100 years after the Christianity, there were Indo-Greek kings in Afghanistan. It is northern borders of India. You see, Seleucus had come to India. I told you last time. Seleucus had come to the northern boundary of India, northwestern boundary of India. He did not enter India. He just entered the periphery and then went back. But then he had left behind generals, Greek generals. They had the capital in Syria, one of these. And in Afghanistan, they settled there. They created an empire independent of the mainland Greece. And they got converted to Buddhism. And when they got converted to Buddhism, they created the icons and idols of Buddha. Because they have been creating icons of Apollo and Zeus and other Greek gods. So on that fashion, on that pattern, they created the icons of Buddha. And it was taken up by Mahayana Buddhists, Mahayana Buddhism. So there are two classes of Buddhists, two types of Buddhism, two branches of Buddhism. One is Hinayan, the other Mahayana. Mahayana are idol worshippers, and they created. And Buddhism became very popular in Central Asia, in West Asia, isn't it? What is the verb? What is the word for a statue in Persian and Arabic? It is But. B-U-T. How would you write But? But. But. So the word But in Arabic and Persian has been derived from Buddha. There were so many statues of Buddha that they started in Persian. The word Buddha came to mean any statue. Buddha. All right, now we come back to Indian history. Yes.
So, just to clarify, you're saying that prior to the Greeks coming to
India.
the East, to India, both in Buddhism and Hinduism, there was no idol worship.
There was no. There was some minor worship. Some village gods were there. Some village.
What do you mean by village gods? Like stones, or?
No, they could sometimes they would carve out a statue also, but it was not part of Hinduism.
I see.
You see, there is the major religion, and there are minor animistic religions also that survive along with the major religion. So there were hardly any statues. Yes, you are right.
So then, prior to that, in Hinduism,
You know, they would Vedic practice
they would do
yajna.
Huh.
It was more prevalent.
I see. Okay.
And in Buddhism also, it came almost after 500 years after Buddha's death.
Oh.
Buddha died in 600 BC. I have given you the date. Buddha was in 6th century BC. So idol worship in Buddhism came almost 500 years after Buddha's death. Now, when the Muslims occupied this country, what happened? They destroyed the temples. Muslims were great people in the sense they almost conquered half the world. In 622 AD, Muhammad Sahib had migrated from Makkah to Medina. 622 AD, you should remember. The Muslim calendar starts from 622 AD. You know it? They call it Hijri calendar. 622 AD it started. And within 100 years, they were in occupation of Egypt, the entire North Africa, the Syria, the Iran, the Iraq, almost Afghanistan, not exactly Afghanistan entirely because Hindu kings were ruling there, and most of the Central Asia, and they Turkey and Central Asia, quite a part of Central Asia. Within 100 years, almost they touched the boundaries of China. So they attacked, of course, they conquered in 710, they invaded Spain and occupied Spain. And they remained in occupation of Spain Muslims for almost 700-800 years. You know it? For almost 800 years they were in occupation. In India also, they invaded a year after invading Spain, but they did not succeed in India in 711. And Indians resisted for almost 400 years, but ultimately succumbed because of the foolishness of this Hindu king who thought he was too civilized. He thought he could forgive the enemies. So what happened? When they occupied, the temples were destroyed, the monasteries were destroyed, the universities were destroyed, the libraries were destroyed. The result was that scientific progress in the country completely ceased. The Ayurveda got affected because of reason. And it had adverse effect on the society. The Indian social order was disturbed. Before the Muslim women, Indian women would not be in parda. You know what is parda? In veil. How would you translate, Vijayaji? How would you translate parda into? They did not observe parda.
Hijab?
Hijab is just coverage of the head. Hijab is coverage of the face.
Right.
But means they would be generally not seen in the public. They would be away from they call it parda.
Not seen by men.
Not seen by men. Not curtain. They would be behind every. They would not be visible. They would become invisible. So before Muslims, there was no invisibility or no parda of the Indian women. Before Muslims, they would not cover their head the way you would have seen many Indian women covering their head. They would not cover their head. Even today in South India, women don't cover their head. But in North India, they've been covering head under the influence of the Muslim rulers. And when Indian women were also put behind the doors, like Muslims, because the invaders, the occupiers, would abduct women. The women were not safe. They were put in harems. It was impossible for a Hindu woman to survive. So what they did, they started marrying the women at a very early age, so that they may become mothers and they may cease to be desirable to the foreigners.
Oh, wow.
Yes, they were married very early.
So prior to that, they weren't married?
No. Prior to that, they had a system of swayamvar. Vijayaji explained to them what is swayamvar.
Swayamvar is like, you choose to marry the person that
You
want
choose
to
your own
marry.
husband. Women would be there.
No.
There would be half a dozen suitors there. And the woman has the choice whom to choose.
Yeah.
One would be chosen, five will go back disappointed. Ram and Sita, everybody knows this story. In Mahabharata and Ramayana, the story is very well known that Sita was a very beautiful woman. Probably 100 suitors had come, great warriors from different parts of, and she chose Ram. So women were, autonomous, not dependent. They were independent, and they could choose their own husband. But after the Muslim invasion, they were put behind the doors. They would not be seen. They would be married very early. And the adverse thing was that sometimes they would kill the female infanticide started in the northwestern India. they would not like to have a girl because it would be taken away by the occupiers of the country if she grows up into a beautiful woman. And the husband died, and there was every danger that the widow might be taken away or might choose a Muslim husband. They started burning her.
Oh.
The widow burning. Sati, you might have heard. So all these distortions came because of the foreign occupation. Have you heard of the Sati? Somebody must have read Sati.
Yeah.
You have read Sati. Have you read Sati? Have you not read in most of the textbooks they teach about Sati in India? It was they started burning the women. They would not allow a widow to come out of a house. They will get her head shaven. They will not give her adequate food so that she may look ugly and will not run away with a Muslim foreigner. So, and the leadership of the Hindu society was destroyed. So society was greatly disturbed. And the tradition of knowledge and scientific research vanished from the country. These were the dark ages.
Tataji, what was so the threat for the Hindus for a woman to marry outside of their culture?
No, another thing, there was a casteism, you might have talked. The casteism. Casteism, before the Muslims came, was not very strong. You see, it was a sort of social division based on labor. But it got distorted. You see, it was a sort of device to keep people to their tradition. And anybody crossed the frontiers of the caste was declared outcast, it was thrown out. So that people, it was a sort of psychological device to prevent pollution from foreign influences.
Who came up with that idea of the caste?
No, caste is a very ancient, is a system. Caste was a very ancient system, but it got distorted during those 1,000 years.
I see.
I have a follow-up question. With the caste system, I heard that during British colonialism, that the texts of Manusmriti became more solidified. This was some years ago in a religious
We'll tell you
studies
later
class,
on.
so-
We'll talk when we talk to the British system. We'll talk about it.
Okay. But so it became, before it was some structure of functioning within society, and then it became distorted and a little bit more solidified, you were saying, during
Yes,
Mughal
it solidified
Empire,
during the
and
Muslim
again-
period and then during the British period.
Okay, and a different.
Because the leadership of the Hindu society became non-functional, non-existent. It vanished. There was none to guide the Hindu society. It was thrown on its own. So all sorts of social evils crept in. We go ahead. Then came the Britishers. The Britishers did some good to the country. When they came to the country, they were comparatively more enlightened than the Muslims. And it is under the British rule, Hindus saw the Renaissance, the re-evaluation of their values and revival of their great heritage. They were aware of they became aware of their heritage. Also, 19th century is the century of social reformation among Hindus. Earlier, the children, girls and boys were not, particularly girls were not sent for school education. But during 19th century, after the Britishers had came, the girl education was revived. There were movements against sati system, burning of the widows. There were movements supporting widow remarriage. All sorts of social reformation took place during the period. But then why the Britishers were there? They were imperialist people. They were there to serve the economic interests. So while they were liberal, so far the social matters were concerned, they let people, they did not convert people to Christianity the way Muslims are converting Hindus to Islam. They did not do it. But then they economically exploited the country. They were there not as a goodwill gesture, they had the imperialist interest at heart. Before the Britishers came, village was a self-contained unit. It did not need any support or economic interaction with other villages or with the cities or with the other people. There was a carpenter, there was a farmer who will give food to everybody, there was a carpenter who will look to the needs of carpentry needs of the people, there was a cobbler, there was an ironsmith, there was a weaver, and the villages, and there was a temple, and there would be an Ayurvedic doctor, and it was a self-contained unit. It did not need anybody from outside. So during the Muslim rule, while wars were fought, some temples were destroyed in cities and pilgrimage centers, the libraries were destroyed, but the village structure remained unaffected. And the Muslim rulers did not take out the money from the country to their country. But Britishers were taking out the money from the country as much as possible. For that purpose, in the early centuries, the East India Company was collecting minerals and resources and exporting to Britain. Once the Industrial Revolution took place, it started exporting finished goods to India. Earlier, the British Empire and Europe was dependent on the Indian cotton and cloth. But after the machines came in Lancashire and other places, they started exporting. And what Britishers did was that they would put heavy taxes on taxations and they removed all taxes on imports. The result was that the exports from England became very, very cheap. That destroyed the Indian industry. Thousands of weavers, the dyers, those who made the thread, they were rendered homeless. It is said millions of people died. The industry came to a distance. Even a small nail was imported from Britain. Small nail was imported from Britain. Shoes, everything was imported from Britain. you know Fiji, Mauritius, where Indians have settled, Guyana, cheap labor went to these British colonies. They took the cheap labor from these countries to serve there because people were starving. Many people died. It was the total exploitation of the country with the result, and now they made some changes in land revenue system also. Earlier during the Mughals or during the Hindu period, the land revenue system implied that one portion of the produce was taken as land revenue from the farmer. So if it was a famine year and there was no production, no land revenue would be collected. Or the production is less land revenue will be collected. But they created a system in which they fixed land revenue for every holding, irrespective irrespective of the fact whether it is a famine year or not a famine year. And they also created a class of middlemen, they call them landlords, who were entrusted with the responsibility of collecting the land revenue in cash from those people. And they were free to collect any amount of revenue for themselves, but give that fixed amount of land revenue to the government. The result was, and they earlier, a tenant, a farmer could not be evicted from his land holding. But the Britishers allowed those landholders to evict the farmers. Now you see the difference? Earlier the farmer could not be evicted. The earlier farmer paid land revenue depending on the produce, on the amount of produce, just a portion of that. He could not be evicted. Now what happened? He had to pay the land revenue, fixed land revenue to the Britishers, and any amount could be, the middleman, the landlord could come in, any amount from them, and could evict them also. The result was many farmers became laborers. They ran away, they evacuated, they came to different countries, and there were great famines in which millions of people died. I have some statistics. Out of 49 years from 1860 to 1908, 20 were famine years. In 50 years, there were 20 famine years. In 1876 to 1877, in 1876-77, 1 million people died. 1896 to 97, 5 million people died. 1899 to 1900, 1.25 million died. In 1943, 3 million people died. So economically, the country was exploited. The foreign rule is never good. It was benevolent, it was liberal, it opened new windows to modernism, to Indians, but it was ultimately very unjust. All right? Clear? The Muslim rulers were brutal, they were barbaric, they physically destroyed the country, but they could not, or probably they did not know how to economically loot the country, but they knew it. They were more sophisticated people. All right, we go ahead. The country became, there was a great mutiny of war of independence in 1857, and the country became independent in 1947. freedom movements were going on during these years, and country became free in 1947. But the country was partitioned between Muslim Pakistan and India, this secular India. Between Muslim Pakistan and secular India. The Muslim leaders, the Muslims said they can't live with Hindus. They demanded the partition. And the Britishers wanted to partition the country.
Why?
That's a very good question. Why? You see, in 1947, Russia was looming large on the horizon. The Anglo-American groups were very afraid of the Russia at that time. You know it?
Yeah.
They were afraid. And they wanted to set up military bases to encircle Russia. And Pakistan had agreed to give military base. The Muslim leaders had agreed to give military base to Anglo-American group in Kashmir, in the northern part of Pakistan, northern part of the Pakistan. So they were not and Indians were Hindus, largely Hindus in the Congress or seculars. They were fighting for country's independence. So the Britishers thought that if we give this piece of land or this parts of the country to the Muslims, they will be with us and they will help us in encircling the Soviet Union. So they were party to the country's partition. And the country was partitioned purely on the basis of religion. Muslim majority states of northwestern India were partitioned as Pakistan, and Hindu majority countries were partitioned as India. But it so happened that India and Indian leaders did not choose to be Hindus or a theocratic Hindu. They did not choose to create a theocratic Hindu state. So India's constitution is secular. It is a secular country, whereas Islam is the Islamic Republic of Pakistan. Pakistan is a theocratic country. You know what is theocracy? Theocracy is that system of government where the governance is run on the basis of the religion. In India, we don't have the tradition of theocracy. No ruler in India in 5,000 years was ever a theocrat. I've been talking about Ashoka, who was a Buddhist, didn't I tell you? But even he was not a theocrat. Look at his inscriptions and writings. He would say he would say Vedics and Buddhists. The Shamans and Vedics, whatever he did, he would do for everybody. He treated citizens, irrespective of their religion, as equals. So even he himself was a Buddhist. So king may have a personal religion, but the country was not governed on the basis of the religion. All right? So with that tradition, when country was partitioned between majority Muslims and majority Hindus, Hindus chose a secular constitution. The result is that when the country was partitioned, in Pakistan there were 25% Hindus and 75% Muslims. So what happened in the last 60 years, Pakistan has now only 1% Hindus left. 25% Hindus were there when the country was partitioned. You can note it down. Now there are only 1% Hindus in Pakistan out of 25. What happened? They were killed, they were converted or thrown to India as refugees. In India, when the country was partitioned, India had 6% Muslims. Now there are 18-20% Muslims. So in India, Muslims are thriving. India is a secular country, and two of our Indian presidents were Muslims. The Supreme Court judge was a Muslim. Even today, our vice president is a Muslim. He has been elected second time. So we have two countries. One is a theocratic country, and one is a secular country. Because why India has chosen to be a secular country, in the next lecture when I tell you about Indian culture, you will understand why India has not chosen to be a theocratic country. Yes, you were asking a question.
So it's so painful and sad to hear about, just terrible to hear about the exploitation of India all these years from the Muslims, from the British, and what's your experience now in India regarding exploitation? Because I have this notion or fear that there's still exploitation happening, like from the US, from corporations, around farming, I mean, is there a sense of strength in India to fight that, to not allow that to happen? I mean, I'm just wanting your experience of what's happening now.
Let me try to understand your question. You say exploitation is still going on in India, and not by foreign invaders, foreign occupiers, but by corporate world from different countries. This is what you are going to, this is what is suggestion. Well, that's not a danger. Corporation by corporate exploitation by corporate world from different countries is not a danger. It is a challenge. India is an independent country, and it can frame its own laws. It will succumb to the corporate world from different countries or from many from the world if our leaders are corrupt. What is happening in Pakistan? Pakistan's President Zardari is known as Mr. 10%. No, Google, whatever is verified. You see, he is the husband of, his wife was prime minister. When his wife died, was killed by the terrorists, he became the president. He was in jail for a number of years, for his corruption cases. He was known as Mr. Crime. And then for some reason, they created a law, national reconciliation law, some such law, in which it was forgotten, corrupt cases were withdrawn, and they were allowed to enter politics. If such a man is the president, corporates, houses from all over the world would enter the country, give him some money, and they will enter and exploit the common people. This is happening not only there, in India also. And our own people are, if the leadership is corrupt, what can you do? So it is for the people of that country to reform or take to task their own leadership. In a way, it is good also. You see, a world culture is developing. I told Steve also the other day, I was telling him, a world culture is developing, where the best of all the countries is being accepted by all the countries of the world. If it is Chinese food, it is good, everybody is accepting. If jeans is good, everybody is accepting. If the yoga is good, everybody is accepting. So the openness, the easy communication is being, I think some good will happen, some good is emerging. And the way you say secular country, for instance, America, the type of liberalism that India had experimented. If you are a Muslim, all right, you follow your own religion. If you are a Buddhist, all right, you follow a religion. If you are a Christian, in India, when the Jewish people came, the only country where the Jewish people were given, not only given shelter, but respected and honored is India. The people from, refugees from Iran, Parsis, we call them Parsis, Zoroastrians, the fire worshippers, they are still there. Our atom bomb was made by a Parsi, that Zoroastrian man. The Buddhists who have migrated from Tibet, they are there in India. So now that attitude, whether you are a Hindu or a religion, you are acceptable, fine. That attitude you find in states also. So as you civilize, as we civilize, as human society matures, those human values are bound to spread and become part of the world culture. So we have through within history. All right? No question on history? Any question on history? Then we come to the Indian culture. You see, why did I? Oh, I'm not coming to Indian culture. I am coming to history of Ayurveda. Sheena said first teach the outlines of Ayurveda history and then come to Indian culture. So before shift, let's think. Any question on Indian history? So I told you, it's a system which developed in India. It doesn't have any outside influence. As a matter of fact, when civilizations developed, in all systems, in all civilizations, some sort of medical system had also developed along with the civilization. Whether it was a witch doctor or some herbal treatment or some chanting or some sort of medical treatments were always there in all civilizations. But I think Ayurvedic system has survived almost 5,000 years. Chinese system has also survived. But no other system has survived that long. And I have divided the history of Ayurveda in 5 periods. The first is Arsh Kal. Arsh means rishis. Arsh Kal means period of rishis. Rishis means sages. Vedic sages were called as rishis. And what would be the time of these rishis? It would be some 3000 BC at least, 3000 BC to 1500 BC. Do you remember when did Saraswati dry up? When did Saraswati dry up?
2000 BC?
2000 BC, everybody knows that. So, 1,000 years or even earlier than that, the rishis were there, the Veda was written. And the Vedas were written even up to 1500 BC around. So this period is 3000 BC to 1500 BC. The other period is Sangrah Kal, in which the Ayurvedic texts were compiled and great stalwarts like Charak, Sushruta, Bhagavad, etc. had appeared and created texts and compilations, compendiums during this period. The period for Sangrah Kal is say 1000 BC to almost 1200 BC. I write 1200 BC because 1200 BC is the time when the Muslims conquered this country, so this is the period. And Madhyam Kal is the Muslim period, is 1200 BC to 1700 BC. 1300 BC should be exactly 1300 BC to 1700 BC. And the Britishers were from 1800 to 2000 BC. 2000 CE, AD. All right?
1000
Wait, can
E.
you see the, so 1000, so Sangre Cal is from
Sangra Kal is from 1000 BCE
BC.
to Sangra Kal, you could say 1200 CE, Christian era, or AD. What do you normally write, CE or AD?
AD, but it's Common Era now, I think.
No, Common era.
Common Era is not.
Earlier we used to write AD,
Yeah.
and now
It is,
we are
We're used to that.
textbook, we are used to AD, but now textbook writes CE, Common era. All right, clear? There's nothing wrong. The Vedas are 4. You know, everybody should know there are 4 Vedas. Everybody should know their names. What are their names?
Rig Veda.
Huh?
Yaj-
Don't let her.
Yeah, I'm actually.
All right,
Rig
let's
Veda,
mantra.
Yaj-
Yajurveda.
Yajurveda, Samveda, and
Atharveda.
Atharveda.
And Samveda is your Veda. Is
Yes.
Gandharva, music. So Rigveda. And all these Vedas have satellite literature also, allied literature also. And I have mentioned what are the Upavedas. Up means Dipti Veda or secondary Vedas. So I have mentioned the Upved of Rigved, the Upved of Rigved is Dhanurved. It deals with archery. The Yajurved is Thapatya architecture. Samved is Gandharved, and the Upved of Atharved is Ayurved. You might note down Rigved is mostly the hymns of prayers. Prayers. In Ved contains mostly the prayers to different gods.
Tataji.
And Yajurved largely deal with the rituals of sacrifice, fire sacrifice, how to make the altars and what sort of, there could be different type of fire, yagyas. Yajurved deals with the yagyas. Samved mostly deals with the music, recitation, chanting. And Atharved largely deals with the treatment of diseases, prevention of diseases. Is that clear? Ayurveda is often described as Pancham Ved, the 5th Ved. Because of the importance of Ayurveda, it is also described as Pancham Ved. Pancham means 5th. It is described as 5th Veda because of the importance of the medical system in human life. Clear? This is important, this is interesting. Indians hold all knowledge as divine, having descended from gods for the benefit of mankind. Interestingly, and it says that accordingly, Ayurveda also claims to be divine of origin, having descended from Brahma the Creator through the heavenly entities to mankind as per the following chart. So, Brahma gave the Ayurveda to humankind. It's a gift from Brahma. There are, it's very confusing. There are three words which sound almost one, but they have three different meanings. One is this is one word. All right? You know this diacritical mark? You know, Bijadi, they know this diacritical mark? Brahma,
Yeah.
or I write double A.
Huh.
What will be better?
No.
You understand?
Yeah.
Brahma. And now this Brahman. There is no diacritical mark anywhere. Did you see? Notice?
Yes.
Brahman or Brahm. No diacritical mark anywhere. Brahm or Brahman is the formless God, the first principle, who is the causation of this universe. It has no form, no smell, no sound, yet prevalent everywhere. All right? And this is with a diacritical mark, almost the spelling is the same, isn't it? This and this spelling are almost the same. Brahman. A is here also. BR. Brahman. All right? Brahman. No diacritical mark. Here's the diacritical mark. And this Brahman. And to be more correct, I should put here Brahman. All right? Thank you. Brahman and Brahman. This Brahman, it is the caste. All right? Now, Brahman is formless. An ordinary human being cannot live without God. he has to create a God. And we believe that we have created God in our image. God has not created human beings in his image. We have created God in our image. So we think that he is anthropomorphic. He is like human beings. Unless you create some God, how would the individual survive? He's so insecure. The world is so strife-ridden, misery-ridden. You need some sort of support. You have to create a God to live. So they created a God, an aspect of God. They created, this you have noted, or the diacritical mark you have noted? So they created a God. This formless God has three functions which they realized creates. Creates, sustains, and destroys. All right? Human beings want to know. Formless God, if he's formless, then he has to be somewhere, God has to be somewhere, he has to be in some form. So they visualized, they invented, and so people believe that no, it's true. But then if you are a student of history and psychology and civilization, you understand, they had to create a God, creator, sustainer, and destroyer. All right? Shall I rub it? Now, for creator, they visualize Brahma. B-R-A-H-M-A. Brahma. Not Brahman, different from.
The difference between like Brahman and Brahma, so Brahma is in the creator, but in the Upanishads, like they also talk about.
In Upanishad they talk of Brahman.
Okay,
They don't talk.
so just
In
not
Brahman
Brahma.
they don't talk of Brahma.
Yeah, okay.
Brahma is a later day creation. At philosophical level, when you talk of the Upanishad, you say Brahman. Aham Brahmasmi. Brahmasmi, Brahman in that sense. Not this. This is more mythological.
Dadaji, do you feel like out of some creation or visualization or like darshan, like
Let me complete
those
it.
were-
Then we'll discuss. Brahma, the Vishnu, V-I-S-H-N-U. Vishnu. Vishnu. V-I-S-H-N-U. All right, you can read my handwriting? Brahma, Vishnu. Brahma, Vishnu, and third is Shiva. Shiv. So it's formless, but you need to have some sort of, psychologically everybody needs to have some sort of explanation, because common men, most of the people find it difficult that the formless person, how could he create, how could he sustain, how could he destroy? So they visualized Brahma, Vishnu, Shiv, or Mahesh. They call it Mahesh also. Brahma, Vishnu, Mahesh. They call it Mahesh also. Shiv is also known as Mahesh. All right? So this is Brahma. So you have three types. This is caste. This is a God, later day God, and this is the real God, formless God, which is beyond the comprehension of human beings. Brahma, Vishnu, Mahesh. Now this Vishnu is the sustainer and believes that he takes human births or he takes different type of births to help the living beings, mankind. Alright? Ram and Krishna, who are worshipped. You know Ram and Krishna, temples of Rama, temples of Krishna. You see the Hare Krishna movement, that Krishna, they worship Krishna. In Ayodhya temple where they destroyed the Babri mosque, the Ram is there, they worship Rama. They are the human incarnations of Vishnu, that sustainer. So that formless God, three aspects of formless God are represented by three gods who come to human beings in the human form to help them. Alright? Is it confusing or is it clear?
Very clear.
Clear? Clear? Now you were asking me a question.
Just if, I guess I'm just wondering how their images or how how darshan with like Brahma or Vishnu or Shiva came about, because like you know, there's like there could be like, okay, so these energies or that energy exists, so then there's some communion or someone, you know, rishis maybe meditate or something happens, so then they are revealed, versus like, okay, man created this. So I'm wondering if there is like a
You see,
point in that.
there was a great thinker we called Vivekanand. He had come to America also.
Yeah.
He attended the great conference of religious conference in 1872. He had come to America, Chicago. He had come. He was a great thinker. He said Hinduism has three aspects. One is philosophy. All right? The other aspect is ritual. And third aspect is mythology. Clear? Now why am I telling you about this? I am telling you the background of the Ayurveda. So you will appreciate Ayurveda better when you know the background. You see, who was the Vedic physician? You might have come to know by now. Ashwani Kumars. You must have read Ashwani Kumars. He was the Vedic physician. And then comes Dhanvantari. Dhanvantari was not known during Vedic period. He appeared almost 3000 years after Rig Veda. So try to understand these intricacies. You see, religion, Hinduism has three aspects: philosophy. When you talk of the philosophy, then God is Brahman, formless. Everything is like it's like a golden egg from which everything emerges and comes back to that golden egg. This is what Vedas say, and which they are trying to equate with black hole, that everything emerges from that and then comes back to it. So at philosophical level, they are very obtuse concepts, not obtuse, what should I say? Very complicated concepts are there. Philosophy. And you have different schools. Now, at mythology level, you have all sorts of stories. Some king has 60,000 children. Somebody is 200 years old, 500 years old, 1,000 years old. All sorts of mythological stories are there. This is for enlightened people. philosophy is for enlightened people, for yogis, for philosophers, for scholars. Philosophy is there to understand. This is for common. Through the mythological tales, they are able to convey dharma to common people, morality to common people. A common people, when he was tortured by its rulers, he thought of the incarnation of Vishnu. He thought someday Vishnu will come to this earth and deliver us. So here is a device for people to live by. Mythology is very important. What is mythology? Mythology is sort of a language also. It conveys in essence. You see, when you say, this is Achilles' heel. No, you know Achilles' heel. Who doesn't know Achilles' heel?
What is it? What is it?
Achilles heel.
Oh, Achilles heel, yeah.
You know. It's Greek mythology. Isn't it? It is said that Achilles was a great warrior, but his weakest point was this heel. So when the fighting was going on, somebody told him, you shoot the arrow in his heel. And he did that, and the Achilles died. He was invincible. He could not have been, but he had the weakest spot. So Achilles' heel Achilles is a mythology from Iliad, or it's a Greek mythology. But when you say Achilles, immediately say कि his weakness, it is the Achilles' heel of Mr. Stephen. You know that's his weak point. He is vulnerable. So just one word conveys. For instance, Rama legend. His wife, Sita, is embodiment of virtues. All possible virtues are assigned to Sita. But among Indians, when you say, that girl, she's Sita. Just one word. You convey what sort of girl she is. They like Judas. I thought, you say, man is a Judas. Convey? Is conveyed, his character is conveyed. Similarly, in Ramayana legend, there is one Vibhishan who betrayed his brother. In all Indian languages, Vibhishan means the betrayer. In Tamil, in South Indian languages also, when they say Vibhishan, means he will betray. He cannot be relied upon. He is Judas. Vibhishan. So mythology have a great role to play for among masses. It has a role for the masses, for the people. It conveys. It is also a sort of language. So these are the three. And ritual. Temple going, do you think God will be able to realize God by going temple? Or just going begging before the God, God give me this, God give me this, God give me this. God may give, may not give. But then ritual is important. Because when we follow the same ritual, there is a bond is created among us. In army, for instance, I sit there. It's a ritual. Anyone who is senior, who is older, would occupy a higher seat. The others. So it's a ritual in the society. This is a ritual. In army also, everybody wears the same uniform. It's a ritual. Do you think they would be lesser fighter if they would not put on the uniform? They would fight as good. They would be as good or as best fighters even without the uniform. But it is a ritual. So ritual creates a bond in the society. So in every religion you have, sometimes people condemn temple going. But temple going is good, may not be ultimately beneficial, but then it creates a bond among the people. Church going, every Sunday people used to go to church. It means society, there is a bond. People going to church every Sunday, they are together. There's a sense of together. So all the things. Now, at what level do you want to see God? You want to see God at philosophical level? then you think of Brahman. When you want to see God at mythological level or mundane level, you see Ram, Krishna, Vishnu, Avatar. All right? And Brahman is a caste. Why Brahman is a caste and why they close? Because I'll explain with the caste system. All right? Is it clear? You understand Brahman? Because in books you will come across Brahma. So, who gave us the Ayurveda? Brahma, not Brahman. Not the Brahman, not that formless God. Is the physical manifestation of that formless God gave us the Ayurveda. He also gave the Natya Shastra, the book on dramaturgy. In that book also it is written Brahma gave Natya Shastra to somebody. Clear? Yes.
I'm confused about mythology in the sense that you said the mythology is created for the common person to be able to understand the philosophy. So then, maybe this is a naive question: who created the mythology?
You see, over centuries, over 5, 7, 9,000 years, the rishis, they were seers, they would visualize. You see, India is one. I'll just explain. This is the map of India. All right? This is the map of India. This is India. And different languages are spoken. And people in the north are blonde, very fair. People here are comparatively less fair. People in south are comparatively more dark. So, physically, features are also very, isn't it? They eat different foods. And they, oh, it's getting 9. They eat different foods. And they wear different clothes. Yet, India is one. They have sense of oneness for last 5,000 years. How? Because the rishis, they were the seers. And as late as 1,000 years back, here in the deep south, this is the south, a Shankaracharya lived here. And he created 4 monasteries, mutt. How would you translate mutt? Hindu monasteries, not Buddhist. He created 4 monasteries. One in west, one in south monasteries, one in east, and one in Himalayas. And he made it necessary for Hindu, before they die, to visit these 4 places. Why did he do it? He wanted to create the oneness in one country in spite of color, complexion, dress.
Wow.
So those thinkers, those seers, this fellow lived only 1,000 years back.
They are reading.
1,200 years back, Shankaracharya.
They know him. They are reading Vivek Chudamani.
Shankaracharya. So 4 places he created, and even I would think I have only visited 3. Let me visit the 4th one also before I die.
Yes. Yes.
So they were thinkers who created this.
Which one have you not visited?
Gujarat.
This one.
So now you clear? It's clear? Philosophy. One more question. All right.
I guess my question really is, and again, maybe this is very naive, but if this mythology was created, as you say, by the rishis to help the common people understand the philosophy, then, for instance, I have family members who believe, and maybe this is just too esoteric, but who believe that Krishna is a real, is a person who lived in India at a certain time period. So I don't know whether I should ask if that's true or not, but how do you, I'm just trying to wrap my head around all of that.
Krishna was probably a historical personality.
Okay.
Krishna was a historical personality, he lived there.
Tell them about the sunken, his city. Dwaraka.
Krishna, Dwaraka is city. No, but that question is different.
So
You see, Krishna was there, but he was not formless. He was manifestation. Now what we believe is, what these people believe is, that everyone is divine. Everyone has a spark of divine. We are all Atmas and we have the spark of that formless God. And some people have content of divinity more than the other living beings. I and Krishna are not different, only he is slightly more.
So
And therefore, he was there. And again, all the philosophers will say that you may worship Ekam Satviprabhuta Vadanti Yamang Matishanva. This is from Vedas. God is one, truth is one. The Pandits, the scholar, call him by different names. So if you, this is why that gives respect for other religions also. If you worship Krishna, the other worships Ram, ultimately it will reach the same formless God. If you worship Jesus, it will reach the same God. Krishna and Gita also say, in whatever form you worship the God, it will reach the same God. So form is immaterial. So if you worship Krishna, you believe he is alive, he is there, he would be there for you. This is
I
the
see.
belief.
I see.
He would be available for you in the form.
In that form in which you want him. Because
The way you want to
ultimate
see him.
reality is formless, is everywhere.
So
I
the-
told you the difference between monotheism and polytheism, polytheism and monotheism and monism. Did I tell you the difference?
Yes.
Remember?
Yeah. So then, if
5 minutes more, all right.
if Ram is
Is the incarnation of Vishnu, is what we believe.
of Vishnu and was born in Ayodhya,
And Vishnu is the manifestation of that formless God. So he is a God.
okay, so he's
You will not be fighting if you think both Ram is God, Krishna is God, Jesus is God. You would not be fighting. But if you think only Ram is God, you will be fighting with everyone else.
Can I add something here for my students? Can I add something? There is a formless Brahman, right?
I've told them.
Brahman literally means one that is infinite. That is nirguna. There is no guna, rajas, sattva. So from that we created something called Vishnu.
Vishnu,
right?
Shankar.
Which also you cannot see. Then there was a prince called Rama, born in Ayodhya, who has a extraordinary life, and at some point, not small but lot of human beings said, to be such a spiritually divine person, you must be an incarnation of Lord Vishnu. And then later, people started just not even having to make that connection. They just don't even say, he is a prince with extraordinary spiritual, I mean, he is God.
I see.
And gradually, at some point, he just became, he is nothing but Sakshat God, the manifest God. But as Tataji is saying, it all begins with a formless one. So there is a potential that Rama, there is some historical evidence, some geographical evidence that he may have lived. So also Krishna. And even some people say that Shiva, he has written this book, done that. So the answer to your question is, Yes and no both.
I see.
You know, clear?
Thank you.
Is it clear?
Is it
Anything?
clear?
Yeah, that's much, that
Were
really
we able
helps.
to add?
Yeah, thank you.
Is it clear to all of you? Anything else? Is it clear to all of you?
And Tata, in your play, Tata, is a playwright. So Tata
We'll talk
wrote a
about it.
story. क्या हुआ?
Talk about the play later on.
No, I'm making the point about the same point. In one of his plays, Krishna kills his maternal uncle, who's the villain. Okay? Whereas many people consider Krishna as incarnate Vishnu, the villain and his team think he is a youth rebel because they cannot see what the others wish to see. So it remains at that some point a subjective phenomenon. This is the point I was making.
All right, clear? Now we'll take up the history of Ayurveda later on. It's already 9. If you have to ask any question till this time, next time we'll concentrate on the history and also the culture of it. And in the next lecture, I'll be able to finish both these topics.
You may not be able to. You may have to stay longer.
I think so.
Maybe we finish by the end of October.
No.
Halloween is a good goal.
Might be November.
November.
And
That's not,
then you
no
should say
stress, right?
Thanksgiving.
Oh, Thanksgiving is wonderful here. You should stay for
Then
Thanksgiving.
we're all going to India in December.
And then we'll all go together.
We'll go together.
We'd feel better.
That's very efficient.
Students, are you enjoying these classes?
Very good.
Yes, very much.
This
No, I
information-
know this. The entire exercise was because of this chart. Let me conclude with Ayurveda. Just 2 minutes more. So it says the Brahma, Ayurveda is descended from Brahma. It came to Daksh Prajapati, to Ashwani Kumars, God's physicians. He gave it to Indra, and Indra gave to Devadas, Dhanvantari, Kashyap and Bharadwaj. And their disciples are there. So you see, it has descended from the gods. It has descended from the gods means we hold Ayurveda in very high esteem. It's divine. The science is not merely, it's not a mundane, worldly science. It is a divine science. This is our deep purpose.
And Tata, this Devadas Dhanvantari is not the same as this Dhanvantari.
Devadas
He's a
Dhanvantari.
human being.
Devadas Dhanvantari was the king of Varanasi, Benares, Varanasi, Kashi Raj, Devadas Dhanvantari. Not, he was a god.
What is Daksha Prajapati?
Daksh Prajapati is again Matha. There is a hierarchy of the gods.
I see.
Not with capital God, but a smaller god.
King of the demigods.
You may call them demigods, pseudo gods, so they're small gods. I told you, I'll just repeat what I told last time. You must understand. There is one polytheism. The other is monotheism. Please note down. Polytheism, please note down. Polytheism, monotheism,
Monism.
and monism. Polytheism, monotheism, and monism. When civilizations world over developed on the banks of the rivers, people in those civilizations worshipped different gods, many gods, all civilizations, Arabs, Jewish people, the Hindus, everyone developed very many gods. In the Egyptian peoples also worship many gods. If you Google, you will find the names of those gods. Isis, Horus. Similarly among Jews also, I did not know that they worship many gods, Jewish people. but then through Google I came to know they also worship many gods. But then in 14th century there was a king born Amenhotep IV. He said that only one God should be worshipped, and it's the Ra Aten God. Earlier they were worshipping dozens of gods. But he said out of those dozens of gods, only one God should be worshipped. It's Aten God. His name was Aten, A-T-E-N. Aten means sun. The name of the sun god was Aten, A-T-E-N. The other name was Ra, R-A, Ra. So he was the first monotheistic king of the world. He changed his name, Amenhotep, he changed to Akhenaten. Go to Egyptian Museum, Akhenaten. He said of the 20, 30, 40 gods, only one God should be worshipped, not many more. And he also declared that he is the Dipti God. He calls himself, he is the Dipti God. And he closed the old temples. And he created a new city, new capital, which is at Amarna. The place is known as Amarna. He created a new city, new capital with new temples of the god Aten. God's name was Aten and his name was Akhenaten. Aten. So he said only Aten should be worshipped. He stopped the worship of Isis, Horus, and many other gods, that falcon-headed god and cat god, and there were various gods in Egypt. He said only Aten would be worshipped and no other god. And he declared himself the Dipti god. Why did he do it?
For power?
For power, yes. He wanted to concentrate all his power, and he did not share with the priests of all different religions. And he not only did that, he also destroyed the temples of others. He is the first monotheistic. So monotheism means you worship one God, you declare you are the prophet or the Dipti head. This is Muhammad Sahib is the prophet of that one God. Everybody should worship that God and his prophet and none else. And destroyed and killed others. So they, in effect, they destroyed the pluralism, which was prevalent before the advent of the monotheism. When Jewish people migrated from Egypt, you call it Exodus, isn't it? They were worshipping various gods. Moses said that only Jehovah will be worshipped and no other god. And he punished all those people who worship other gods or that golden calf. This is in Bible. I'm quoting from Bible. So monotheism came to monotheism. So there was a journey of the humanity from polytheism to monotheism. But in Vedic rishis, their journey continued beyond monotheism and it went to monism. Monism. Monism means everything, there is nothing but God. We are all part of the God. and different gods are manifestation of the same God. So in effect you believe in one God, yet you allow people to worship many gods. And there are dozens of mantras in Rig Veda and other Vedas to this effect.
Mm.
And the most famous is God is one, which God is ultimately one, which scholars describe by different names. Ekam Sadvi Prabhuta Vadanti Yamam Mata Shwanma. So I said, repeated in the context of the talk that was going on. All right?
Thank you.
Thank you,
Thank you so
Tataji.
much.